Hi everyone, my name is Michał Guzowski. I think many of you already know me because I recognize some names in the chat window. So yeah, for those who don't know me, I'm a consultant. I don't have slides for myself, so that's why I'm telling that when you're seeing the first slide. So yeah, back into the topic. I'm a consultant architect for many years, around 7 or 6 or 7 years. And for last 3 years, I mainly work with Office 365 and Power Platform. And I totally fell in love in Power Platform. So that's why for last 2 years, I decided to mainly do only PowerApps, Power Automate solutions, and solutions that are involving many different platforms, services from Office 365, and integrate them in a modular way rather than develop it using some C#, React, or whatever that I used to use previously. So today, it's totally not a developer's topic. It's definitely a more business one. It's a topic regarding something that I've learned for last 2 years working with PowerApps. I noticed that many of my apps, even that from the logical point of view, technical point of view, they're perfectly fine. Somehow my users don't agree with me. Sometimes, somehow they just totally do not feel what the app should allow them to do, even though technically it's possible. The design was not intuitive at all. So that's why I decided to sum up everything I've learned and share it with you. So first of all, of course, thanks to our organizers and everything best for the 5th celebrity anniversary that will be in probably the party will be in October, I think. Yeah, it's in September. There is a date. I didn't notice that. Thanks to our partners that help us to organize it. Moving to the main topic, I would like to begin my presentation with a simple story for the beginning. Simple story of Alex Wilbur, a good friend of Megan Bowen, that probably most of you already know. But this is Alex Wilbur. Alex Wilbur is a 30 years old engineer, software engineer. Every day he used to go to his office by car, and every day he passed under this sign that says no, just that, no. He never understands why it's there and what is the context of this sign. So he always wonders what is it about, but okay, whatever. He on his way to the office, he takes for a quick coffee in a cafe. Then walk into the office building and take the elevator, select proper floor, and before he gets to his desk, he quickly used the toilet. This is actually one of my favorite photos because I'm always wondering what the architecture designers of this toilet was thinking. Like, what should you do when you're in the middle and both and there are 2 people next to you on the right and the left side? Like should you mock them one to another that guy on the left has a bigger hand, of course, bigger hand, or longer fingers? Yeah. So yeah, very funny, very funny picture. Nevertheless, once our main character Alex get to his table, he turn on his favorite songs. Sometimes when he found some new song, he would like to select it as his favorite one, but he needs to be very careful, not by accident select the wrong thumb. Whenever he found something that he really enjoyed, he would like to volume it up, but he needs to be careful because his button on his keyboard is right next to the turn off button. So he needs to be careful, but it's still better risk. It's lower risk than trying to use funny application that their company developers made for fun, of course, to volume up. So this short story actually connects to the application UX synths. There are many things that we are doing as developers, as constructors of the applications. We are doing even sometimes unconsciously to our users, but it influences their work. So we miss some context, we put some misleading information, we do unclear design, we put too many information next to each other, we didn't test our designs with our users. Then we're inconsistent of what we've done. Sometimes we just put the right thing, but on the opposite meaning next to the other. So the whole design is error prone. And then sometimes we just had bad idea. So before I get to share my experience and to give you some rules that you could follow to solve those problems, I would like to first of all clarify one thing. There is nothing like best UX recipe. I'll give you some set of rules to increase your chance for success, but I'm not going to tell you what color or what font you should use or where you should put the controls. I hope that there are no such rules, but I hope that with the usage of the things that I'm going to tell you, you will know what to fix in the end of the day. So one more thing before we get to the main part. Very important question. Does it really matter? Does we should really care about the UX and the design? So in 2018, McKinsey published a report where they tracked the design practices of 300 publicly listed companies over a 5-year period between 2012 and 2017 in multiple different countries and industries. And they interviewed senior business managers, design leaders, and they collected more than 2 million pieces of financial data. And what they discovered is that there were three key findings. First of all, strong correlation between high McKinsey Design Index, MDI score, and superior business performance. Then the results are true in all three of the industries. So there was medical technology, consumer goods, and retail banking. And the last thing was that total returns to shareholders and revenue differences between the fourth, third, and second quartiles were marginal. So they clearly prove that there is a strong correlation between how good your UX is with the adoption which influence the returns of investments or to shareholders. Are there any questions? You can write it actually if you don't want to ask them verbally, then you can just type that. The typed questions I'll take later on the end of the presentation. So next, moving to my main topic, there are few rules, and we can group them in three groups that we can prioritize. And the very fundamental one is are the rules that your application should be simple, order, and intuitive. Once it will be simple, order, and intuitive, it should be productive. And the last, with the lowest priority, rule that your application should follow is the freshness of it. So you may wonder why actually simple, order, and intuitive is on the very bottom of this pyramid. It's very strongly correlated to what Abraham Maslow discovered in I think 1940 something, in the 40s. So he discovered this pyramid of human needs, and safety is just after physiological needs to be filled. And actually those three rules, simplicity, order, and intuitiveness, they are really connected to the safety, the safety level. So now, knowing that, we can go one by one and actually explain what simplicity means. What does it mean that our application should be simple? So first of all, the application to be simple should build the context for a user. And what does it mean actually? First time when you'll be able to build the context for a user is just a welcome screen. Whenever your user will open the application, he will see some logo and maybe some title. So now imagine that instead of seeing this screen, you will see something like that: company project MD underline 16. Well, what the heck? What does it even mean? So the user won't know what you have to set his expectations. And with this title, you're not doing that. So your user will figure something out for himself, what suits him the best. So it's not the good approach. Of course, the next step will be the screen that he will see. And here you can very clearly see what kind of screen are you looking at? What is its content? Because of the screen title that is displayed on the top is the messages. You know that, okay, you're looking at messages. And whenever you design your application screens, imagine that your user is using the phone or the tablet or whatever, he's using your application, and then something disturbed him. So he put the phone on the table, he do something for 5-10 minutes, and he get back to the application. He returned to the application, unlock the screen, and see the screen that he was using, and your application should be able to instantly tell him what he was doing. So whenever you see something like that, like messages, you know that, okay, I was looking at messages, some kind of messages with other people, good. But imagine that, on the other hand, you will see something like that, recents. Like recents what? Is it messages? Is it applications I've used? Is it calls. Of course, once you quickly make a quick glance on the icons, that there's the phone icon, then you will connect the dots and you will know that, okay, this is the resident calls probably. But this is the example of not very good design. There should be something like resident calls or whatever. Another example of building context for a user is when you ask him to do something, or maybe there is an option to set, and there is a description. Like in this example, you're asking user, does the car equipment is more important for you than the price you would need to pay for a day usage when renting a company car? Wow, a lot of text, and probably user will not know what you want him, what do you want from him, unless he read all of it. So what about giving a quick head title? Price or quality? Oh, okay, price of quality. Okay, good. And then he read the description, and now you set his expectations with just the title and clarify everything with the description. But of course, right now we've got 3 elements: head title, content, body content, and control. We can simply connect those, the title and the control, and even to highlight selected option, you can put more gray color on the description and put some extra iconic representation for the context of quality and price control. Quite important part is that whenever you will have applications that will be very often in use for users, then you should remember that good label is invisible to those who don't want to see it, and easy to find for those who want to see it. What does it mean? Use gray color, really. Gray color is semi-transparent color, I would say. So those who are just, scrolling through the application, they will mainly focus on those information that are black and white or gray and yellow. Those gray colors are much more simpler to just skip them. Of course, it depends somehow on the background color, but I think you get the point. Next thing is use your space wisely. What does it mean? Whenever you see this group of information, like this higher quality, lower price button, the description, the icons, and on the bottom you see white space, you just now set expectation that there should be something displayed, and you'll be of course right, because there will be a copy of this group of controls. But if I'll display those group of controls in the middle of the screen, then probably you will not expect everything to be displayed on the top of or on the bottom. Of course, in terms of application, it's easy to observe in this example. So I've got some screen for postponed social media posting. You see some controls. You see some free space on the bottom. And because of the head title, it's quite easy to understand what it's all about, but the text boxes, it may need some extra information what it's all about. So if you put some hint text, if you put some placeholder for the image, then it will be perfectly intuitive what it's all about. Quite often question is that, okay, what kind of message should we put in the hint text box? So something that is personal is very okay. So some personal question like any link to external resource, is perfectly fine. Something just more descriptive is good as well. Just try not to copy the control label that is on that is above. It's not a good approach. Moving next to ordered rule. I'm wondering if you know something like Gestalt principles. Gestalt principles are a set of psychological principles that determine how people naturally perceive information and unconsciously attach extra meaning. And Gestalt principles describe 7 rules, but from our perspective, we'll just cover 5 of them. So first rule, the proximity, says that elements which are close together seems to be a group, and we have tendency to connect those information together. So in the example on the screen, you can see that there are 4 rows of data. Sorry? Okay, whatever. Nevertheless, we've got 4 rows of data, but actually it's not 4 rows. It's just 2. It was 2 rows, but with 2 kind of information, and the space that was the same just give us impression that those are 4 rows. But if we put them close together, then you'll be perfectly sure that those are only 2 rows of information. So this is the proximity rule, very simple one and very powerful. Next one is a similarity, and this is something I observed so many times in my past implementations of many applications of my friends or other developers. I don't know why, but many developers do that. Similarity says that elements which look similar seem to be a group, which the simplest description of that will be the same. If it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it probably is a duck. So whenever you use in your application, for instance, multiple different buttons, just use the same design. In this example, and this is the bad one, you can see that there is this tick button that actually is a button to move to the next phase of the process. And on the right side of it, you can see add new element to the list, and those are buttons of the different design. They actually should be of the same design. So this is the similarity group rule. Sorry. In terms of next rule, continuity, the simplest representation of that is that take a look on the list on the left. And now I would not change the list as it is, I mean the terms, but I will change the position. Only because I change the position and actually I break the continuity rule, you will have another way of perceiving the information it trying to give you. So moving back to the old hierarchy, continuity rule says that elements which are ordered in a line or curve seem to be connected. And for instance, we can take a look on the PowerApp portal, when actually you can see clearly which information are connected to each other. On the left side, you've got one kind of navigation. On the top, you've got another kind of navigation. And in the middle, you've got another group of controls, only because they are aligned. Next rule is the closure. And this rule says that elements which are ordered, that are creating closed figures seem to be grouped as well. And we can use the same example as well. in the screen, you can see that applications, they are aligned to the same line, and also they are put inside the rectangle. The same rules, the same rule can be applied in the apps. You can imagine that if you draw a line, horizontal one, right to the right side of the screen, and then draw a vertical line right at the bottom, then it will draw a next rectangle that will actually group all the applications below, and that's how you connect the information unconsciously. So yeah, this is another example of closure rule. In this example, one more time, you can easily identify which information are connected to which button, only because the button is of the same height as the total height of those two rows of information. In PowerApps editor, you've got these cool support lines that I really encourage you to use to align elements all together. And the last group is the connection, and the connection group says that elements which are visibly connected seem to be grouped. And the easiest representation of that is the browser tabs. How do you identify which one is active? Mainly, of course, one thing is the color, but I can ensure that even if you just use different color, it will not be very intuitive unless you connect the white area with the color, white color of the information below. Those where you've got those tabs and bookmarks. So in terms of the application, this is an example of some application that you can see some description of the process. And how do you know that this is this information is only one option selection? Mainly because there is a connection between those bubbles, between those circles. And of course, the ultimate rule will be to put all those rules in play. And this is a cool example of such application where you've got example of for instance, proximity by putting those folders images next to each other. Similarity, the same example. Continuity, one more time here exactly as well, but also you can observe it in the navigation at the bottom. Closure, for instance, for this file information. And the coolest one is a connection rule. And actually, you can see that this plus button, what do you think for a second, what do you expect will happen if you press the plus button on the bottom? If you press the plus button, will it add an extra file or rather folder, or it will add extra icon to the navigation bar on the bottom? Probably the first one. Why? Because it's clear separation. And this is still the connection actually rule in charge. There is a very easy to identify the separation between the part above the button and below it, and you can even have an impression that this area above somehow took control over this button. So this is the connection rule in charge of Gestalt principles. Last part of our main fundamental rules to follow the intuitiveness. First of all, follow patterns. So whenever you use build application for a company, figure out what are their maybe brand book, or maybe just display their open their browser page, just to observe what are the color pattern could be used in your application. Also, try to understand what are the operation systems that they're using, because whenever you see something like that, the information to save or not the image or the file, what would you expect? Where should be the save button displayed? On the left or on the right? Some of you may think that, okay, save button should be on the left, and those probably will be the Windows users, but some of them may think, save button should be on the right side, and this is because you are Mac users. So try to figure out what are the majority of your users to follow most widely used controls order. Very important rule is giving all the time feedback to your users. Whenever your user take an action in your application, you have to give him some feedback why that he did something and what is the status. There have to be some animation. All kind of busy indicators are fine, as long as, for instance, this busy indicator thingy will not took like 3 minutes. Whenever it took more than 15 seconds, you should display more information, like maybe getting things ready. Then after the next 15 seconds, change it to some other information. Just give a feedback to user that something is happening and it's not freezed. Your application is not freezed, it's thinking, it's doing something. Maybe it's because of a poor network connection, whatever. Just figure out something that is really done in the background. Also, good advice is to, whenever you change the position of some information, some group of information, like in this case, you can see that title is moving from the center to the left side. You can build simple application, even in PowerApps, to just draw how this application, draw the animation, how this controls are moving, just to tell your user that, okay, it's not new screen, it's not totally new screen. It's something that there are some information from the box from the previous screen, but we just reorder it. And the last part for our most important rules, besides simple, order, intuitive, will be the productive. So your application should support productivity, and it can be done in 2 ways. First of all, remember that people are scanning before they're reading. So use all kind of color tricks to highlight most important information, to highlight priority of the information, like in those to-do task screen. So just remember that people are scanning before they're reading. And the next thing will be keep low CTTCR, which is click task completion rate. One of the good advice will be to rather, before you will use scrollable screen in PowerApps, try to do it in the just multiple different screens. Why? Because actually scrolling requires more clicks than pressing next button to moving to the next page. Scrollable screens are good whenever there are a lot of text or a lot of information that are grouped together, and they're based on some wall of text. So this is the moments when this scrollable screen is okay, but most of the time, just simple screen with a button of go to the next page or go to the previous page will be very sufficient. Another example will be whenever you have a time control. Don't use, if you don't have to, don't use the number text boxes, because whenever user would like to change the value, they will have to press the text box, then remove the value, and then press the new value. So there are at least 4 clicks. In the example on the right side, you can see that it's a simple radio button that user can easily and very efficiently change between different hours. Of course, there is a question for the context. If that's the case, to have only 4 options, but yeah, you know the drill. So try to keep low this CTTCR. So maybe some few examples. First example is the application for stock taking. When users would like to add to the stock taking list new item, then process it through the different stages of the whole process in the organization. And this is, as you can see, this is the first design that is not following most of the rules that I've just told you. The first iteration of the design changed a little bit order of information. So I'll click back one more time, so you can see which information moved where. So for instance, dates has been moved from the white area to the green to the red area. Also, status moved far to the right side of the control, and edit button, so this pen button, moved to the red area as well. But this design is still far from being perfect. For instance, on the bottom, you can see this send to acceptation to regional acceptation button, this tick button, which is a button and it's totally different from the one that is to add new item to stock taking on the top. So in next iteration, we improved that as well. We also use this very cool iconic representation of the status. So previously, I move one screen back. You can see that this is drop down, and after the change, we use only this radio button representation with the usage of different also icons on it, and it was mainly advised by the users who were actually scrolling through the whole list and trying to quickly identify status of elements, or rather find elements that are not in the stock take. So they were scrolling down through the all elements, and yeah, the reading in this example of the drop down, they had to read it, but in this example they were just quickly putting glass on this middle column in this sobriety button. We also reordered a little bit white area, controls on the right area, and move especially most important information for the workers to the very separately from each other, and give them a lot of space between each other. And I'm talking about this serial number that is on the very middle of the control on the row, and a worker who is responsible. This is the number on the right. Those are the identification number of the workers. Last improvement was to move a button for the regional acceptation from the top, from the bottom right corner to actually bring it closer to the process indicators. So by following rule of proximity, we now showing user that okay, whenever you want to move from the inventarization process to regional verification, just press this button. And so that was one example. Another example was this application for postponed social media posting. So on the left side, you can see my very first design of this application that I used. And after some time of using it, I decided that every time I tried to use it, I had to learn its design as I was using it for the first time. I don't know why. Of course, after sometimes of thinking about it, I've noticed that it's mainly because of this bad UX. So that's why I've come up with new user experience design, and I split one screen to two screens. But now each screen is grouping specific group of information, specific controls. On the first screen, I'm only dealing with the content. On the next screen, I'm only dealing with the publishing configuration. And of course, those final screens has been iteratively improved as well. For instance, the second screen with the publish configuration, the very first design, it looks like that you can see on the left side. So there were no labels for information, for groups of information. There were no radio buttons whenever you want to select hours. So it was not very productive to use. But after a few iterations, I've added extra radio buttons, added extra labels. I also made few changes on not displaying channels configurations if they are not selected. So on the top, you can see that LinkedIn button is grayed out, and that's why it's not displayed on the gallery below. And that will be it. So to sum up everything, I've just told you my observations in terms of bad practices. Those are the UX sins, and good practices. Those are the UX remedies. But if I know that this is a lot of information, so if I would give you only one rule to remember, only one rule after my presentation, it will be to be empathy. Whenever you do any kind of application, any kind of solution for your users, try to put yourselves in their shoes. Try to really think on what is the context of their work. Is it a disturbing environment, or maybe it's a quiet environment? Are they really in a rush, or rather they can calmly do one thing at a time, and so on? So try to understand how they are working. Try to even see it. Maybe organize some workshops when they will just actually show you what they are doing and how they are doing. So empathy is the golden rule for all those. Whenever you follow empathy, you will just intuitively follow those rules. So yeah, actually also remember to make no assumptions. Better ask your users, because maybe there will be something that you assume to be obvious, but for the users will be not. So make no assumptions, except one. Your users know nothing about your application, and you have to tell it through your user experience. So you can perceive users as a Jon Snow, that they know nothing, and just as Jon Snow, let them get the hottest app in your company. This is what I wish to you. In terms of resources I've used, there are some cool books, and the first one, Design Patterns of O'Reilly, is one of the best in terms of design. Also, it displays multiple different examples of, it describes multiple different examples of controls, of how you should put information in the screen and so on. I also used the cool design inspirations. Those are some application screens that you see in my presentation were from those sites. So you can advise you to at least trying to see what is in those sites to get some inspiration. And of course, follow me on Twitter. Come to my blog. I'm also co-founder of Akademia Aplikacji, which is e-training for Office and Power Platform and so on. Currently only in Polish, but who knows what will be in the future. So if you've got any question, is the best time to ask. If not, then please leave your feedback. Tell me what was good, what was bad. Yeah, and share your opinion. That's it. Any questions? Ah, yeah, I should actually check.
There are no questions. I was checking them.
Sorry?
I think Kamal unmuted himself by an accident. Kamal? Yeah, definitely. So, people,
that might be just the background noise. Hello, Michał. It's Marcin here. I have a question actually for you. Yeah. Hello there.
Hi.
Very interesting presentation, by the way. Okay. We are also fighting for a very good UX of our applications, but
good.
I would like to know your opinion on, or how do you actually approach keeping consistency of PowerApps in like huge organizations where people are building a lot of those?
Yeah, so basically whenever you're dealing with big organization, probably big organizations already have something like a branding book, right? So you should build something very similar for PowerApps, but try not to be very restrictive, because whenever we are coming to give a power to citizen developers, we are dealing a little bit with shadow IT, which by definition should be less restrictive and should rather focus on the business value that should be given through the applications, and try to organize them instead by, for instance, allowing them to build whatever they want in development environment, and then whenever publish anything on production, then go through some UX session, UX improvement session, go for some consistency checks and so on. And of course, whenever we talk about consistency, then there should be someone responsible for that.
Okay, that answers the question. And do you use, because I'm not, good on PowerApps yet, I'm just starting. How about some templates? Is there a good possibility to manage those for the PowerApps? Do you use that possibility if there's
any? To be honest, there are some option to build color templates. However, they are shared in Microsoft articles. Some of them are in GitHub, PowerApps tools in GitHub, but I've used that and it didn't work for me. I don't know why.
Okay.
Something wrong.
Nice
but
to know.
But you can try. Maybe they fix it. But that's only for color templates. For any kind of other templating, like building templates for apps, you can actually just build an app and export it And then anytime you would like to create new application, just import this template and start from that.
Or you can.
There is nothing like templates library where you can publish some templates for you. Rather, you just use simple applications, simple applications that are used like templates.
What you can do as well is you can create, for example, small components, like a component with a header, a component with a footer, and then just store them somewhere accessible by the other users. And so once they approach to create a new application, I have to import those components and just use them as elements of branding. But as Michael said, there is no kind of like a repository a company could use and store the templates and then reuse them. None of those things.
Yeah,
you have to
that's a pity, of course, but I guess that from the UX point of view that you presented, it's also good to then share those practices with your organization, actually. And if you do so, I bet that people then will start building quite a good apps. Thank you, Michał, for the presentation and for the answer.
Thanks for the questions.
Michael, thank you very much for your session. It was just stunning. I very much loved the intro. So see you in Warsaw in September, hopefully.
See you in Warsaw in September. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye. Stay healthy. Stay healthy.